stand tall. Words are blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited minds sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the sports in our arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena there's no chance to escape the vibrant lore. Diving deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the sports in our arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Heard. Will be heard. Will be heard. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. In the ring we stand tall. Words of blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave. Every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean. Spirited mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night. Join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Diving deep in the search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan arena, where minds clash and thoughts gleam. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance. In this arena, there's no chance to escape the fight by lore. Diving deep in the search for more.
What is going on, everybody? We're back at it. Another stream, another live. You know where you're at. Spartan SQ Network. I am the Spartan SQ, aka Peter. Of course, we're talking about karate versus boxing. This is going to be a little bit of an argument tonight. Last week, if you haven't seen what I did and what I said, was I called out Paul. Yes, Paul, I am calling you the president. He thinks boxing is better than martial arts. Oh, he is so wrong on that because martial art is a superior art form. Keyword art form, ladies and gentlemen. It's a art form. Boxing is a discipline. If you want to call it discipline, that's another argument there. So it was going on, Greg. So it's a, boxing has several moves only. Like you usually have jabs, uppercuts, and so on. In martial arts, you have multiple moves. You have roundhouses, you have reverse punch, you have shutos. Shuto is when you come from here. People know as karate chops. You have pitch strikes. You got multiple strikes. But martial arts is more than just karate. Is more about you have judo, you have kung fu. The list goes on and on. But we're going to specifically try to focus on mostly karate today. That's one of the arts I actually have practice on personally. From you guys don't know, I am a third degree black belt, 4-time world grand champion. The style called Sai Jitsu and Net Jitsu. That is based on my instructor, Master Kazaka. He was half Japanese, half Chinese. So he took one style from his parents. Both of his parents, remember correctly, his father was Japanese and his mom was Chinese. So he took what his mom taught him and what his father taught him. He combined them. So that was when back in the day when martial arts were just martial arts. It was no mixed martial arts back then. Mixed martial arts came in later on. The three founders of martial arts, let's do a little history lesson, are three instructors. Number one was obviously Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist out there. Secondary, and they're not in Pacific order, I'm just going to name them off, is Master V or Master V Virtichu. He was out of Thailand, and when he came to the States, he realized he need to open his horizon, do different types of martial arts. So that's where he started training under the karate, boxing, and so on. His favorite art was the honest. Honest stands for stick fighting, where he's from Thailand. The third instructor, and then I might be completely wrong a little bit here. My order again is no specific order, or it could be some other people, but this is what I know. So the other instructor who created the mixed martial arts was, and I quote, it was my instructor, Master Ray Kazaka. So when this first created, it was mixed martial arts was supposed to be not a UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. It was basically trying to teach different arts to people you can train. Part of my black belt test, and I'm not joking. I know some schools still do this, not many, was to go out and practice at another style for some of it is a year, some of it is 6 months, some are only a month. My instructor required us to do 6 months at another school. So I trained another school. And when I walked in there, I'm like, there is a loophole there. And I challenged the head instructor. I went, "Oh, due respect, sensei, I think it's a loophole." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay. If you know much better, how about you demonstrate a better technique?" "Okay, why not?" And I did my thing, boom, 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 boom. He goes, "You've been practicing like I told you I practiced before. I've been studying the art for years." He goes, "Okay, let's spar a little bit." I'm like, "You don't want to do that. I don't want to embarrass you." I'm like, "All right." Put the gloves on. And I'm not saying I won. I'm not saying I lost, but I gave his money. I also held back a little bit too, to be fair, because again, I went when you go to the new dojo and train on a different instructor, you still want to show respect to the art and to that sensei, to that to to the dojo. So I didn't want to go too crazy. When I did do that, he realized, okay, what's up, kid? What's the catch? I explained to him, listen, my instructor requires us to learn something oh, who's your instructor? And I explained to who they're like, that old man. Everybody used to nickname him old man. He used to hate that. But my point, the argument today is, whole argument is because you're doing katas, and katas, a form, is to train you to use a technique, but it doesn't mean you're going to have to use that like that. For example, the basic forms are the beginning at white belt level is form one is very simple: down block, reverse punch, C step, down block, reverse punch, and so on. Hey, Eric, what's going on, my man? And and so that is the basic, but that teaches you where to put your down block, how to hit the reverse punch. So people think this straight lock is a good punch. That is wrong, actually. You want to bend it in to give. So when you do on the impact of the eye knuckles, you want to hit and twist. We teach in martial arts. We don't hit their chest or anything like that. We hit in the solar plex. But let's get this guy in here. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our president who's going to lose tonight. Oh, you really want to go there? You really want to go there? Like, this is the guy who has never trained in any arts or in a boxing match.
You are correct.
So you have a hard time arguing about this. But go ahead, Paul. Take the floor for a minute. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna make my case now, and you're free to chop it up any way you want after that. We can certainly have a discussion on it. Now, the title tonight is, again, it's boxing versus martial arts. So automatically that's going to get certain people in camps are going to get irate. Some people treat their whatever they're doing, like a religion. And, they can be very defensive of it. And, so anything that you say that may be look somewhat disparaging about it is something that people, you got to be you got to be mindful. Sorry about that, Pete. About that. You need to, Craig. You need to do something about that. wear like in boxing, wear a headgear. There you go. Wear a head mask, and hopefully that'll protect at least the top of your head where you're hitting yourself. But the point of the what I've been seeing over the years is not certainly to be contentious or to get the martial arts guys upset or what have you. And you're right. I've never trained formally. I did a little bit of training with martial arts. Eric, I think he introduced me to it. I did a little there. I did do a little boxing training, but I've never been in a ring. I've never sparred. I've never been in a sanctioned match of any kind. But a lot of what I've seen as of late, it's not coming from me. It's coming from martial artists who talk about the how martial arts in a lot of ways is kind of overrated in terms of what it does for you, or they in recent years started to talk about the value of boxing and wrestling and other things that for a long time a lot of people didn't consider martial arts, but now they're sort of incorporated into everything. And so one of the ground rules that I wanted to lay for tonight is, in this discussion, we don't talk MMA tonight, nor do we talk about really Bruce Lee tonight, who is oftentimes referred to as the father of MMA. Because if we go there, then that just proves my argument. Because those arts do incorporate those things into it. So really, it's what martial artists have been saying that is really what's been stirring me in terms of having this conversation. And the one thing also, ladies and gentlemen, you may hear tonight, I'm talking generally, right? I can't speak for anyone's learned or lived experience in the realm of martial arts or boxing or anything else. But a lot of times what you hear is, well, we didn't do it that way, or my school did it this way, and my school did that. I'm saying granted, and I'm glad about that. We're talking about the general state of martial arts or the general state of boxing or whatever it is. We're talking general. There's always exceptions to everything. And I'm glad that certain people, certainly have been taught the right way and have the right approach to it. And so again, that's not my contention. But what is my contention is that there are few true martial artists, and there's even fewer fighters. And for me, when it comes to combat in combat sports, there's very few of those. And at the top of those, I will put boxing and wrestling. At the top, maybe Thai boxing, close third. But I mean, there's I think we have to make a distinction between what is martial arts, traditional martial arts. Again, we're not talking MMA tonight, so just take that off the floor. Your taekwondo, your kung fu, your tai chi, all the traditional kind of martial arts where there's forms and there's meditation and there's techniques and there's the hardening of the body. We're talking traditional martial arts versus boxing, or not even so much boxing, specifically versus fighting. Just because you're a martial artist does not automatically make you a great fighter. And so there's a distinction there. But again, I didn't say this. This is coming from those who would know best. So again, I'm not here to be the expert here, but I'm going to, I got some videos streamed up. Some of these guys I actually got permission from to share their content. And I just want to kind of go through some of these, a couple minutes each. I'm not going to long stroke these. But Pete, you might want to put up the fair use rules and just make sure those are on display. So I'm just going to play just a few minutes of these, and just to kind of where the source a lot of my argument comes from, and then we can have a discussion. But again, I don't want this to get personal, and I don't want people to take it personally, especially if you guys did it another way. I accept that, but we got to understand and recognize that a lot of what's taught is really not martial arts, and a lot of what's out there really isn't fighting. Okay. And so that's where my whole thing is coming from. I'm not pitting one against the other. I think if you're going to be a good martial artist, I think you need to know all of it.
That's true. So I'm going to touch on for 1 second, all right? So I want to get everybody clear one thing. One, we're not arguing. Me and him might go back and forth. We're not arguing. This is a friendly discussion. Can we agree on that, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Second thing I want to mention also, as a martial artist myself, who has a third grade black belt, 4-time world grand champion, the martial arts you learn in the United States is not the same traditional martial art you learn over in Okinawa, China, and so on and so on. It's Americanized. Let's keep that in mind. So, for example, if you go to a school, it says Okinawa Shonryu. That is not Okinawa Shonryu from Japan. It's a different Okinawa Shonryu. You're teaching a different one. If you go to a school, it is say in Stroudsburg, for argument's sakes, PA. All right, it says Okinawa Shonryu. Then I go to Newark, New Jersey. I'm just throwing states out there right now. Okinawa Shonryu. You're going to learn it's two different styles. I had a student, two students of mine, actually three. There are three brothers. They came in. They had black belts. They were trained under Okinawa Shonryu, and I explained to the parents. I do a mix of it, a little mix of karate. I never say Okinawa Shonryu. Let's keep that in mind. And kung fu. My instructor combined those. And the argument of the parents about they have the black belt, like I gotta retest them. It's not the same style. And the parents got upset about the student wasn't. He goes, I'm cool with that. So that tells you right there. Any school you go says Okinawa Shonryu is not the same one. I know two schools, literally, I'm not even joking, across the street from each other. Both advertised they were Okinawa Shonryu, but they were not the same. Different katas, different style, different everything, different instructors. So I want to just put that out there for everybody. Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Okay. All right. So the first video that I want to show is from Dan Inosanto. All right. So again, very close to Bruce Lee. And I want you guys to hear what Bruce Lee said about a lot of traditional martial arts and pay attention to what he's saying. All right. So again, it's going to be a segment here, but let's share this. Let me know if you can see it and hear it. And here we go.
1965.
Can you hear it?
I'll tell you a story that I thought was so funny. I came back and I had a Charlie horse on the right side and a Charlie horse on the left side, and I had my ribs. I got a second place in 1965. It was in Hilton, Salt Lake City, Western U.S. Karate Championships. That's my last tournament. That was Chuck Norris's first tournament.
Oh.
And that's all I got. But anyway, I got a second, and I remember showing him the trophy, and he looked at it and he goes, "You know why you got that? Because nobody there could fight." And I thought, well, that was really like, Jesus. Says, and they don't make contact. It's a game of tag. And I said, well, if it's a game of tag, then why do I have a Charlie horse here and a Charlie horse here, and a rib cage here?
Yeah.
You know, and but I just thought that was so funny. He looked at the trophy. He says, "That's nothing."
What's that?
Uncle Bruce did? Uncle Bruce did?
Yeah, he told me that was nothing. He says, "That's nothing." He says, "That's just a game of tag. There's no real contact." That's why I thought it was so funny, because I was sitting there with a Charlie horse in both legs, and my ribs really hurt. And he was telling me that was a game of tag. He says, "You guys don't hit to the face."
Certainly doesn't compare to his cha-cha trophy.
I just wanted to stop sharing that. Stop sharing. All right, so the reason why I showed that was because Bruce Lee had his issues. Now, people can say it's different now, it's changed, it's a different form now, but back then, the way martial arts tournaments were run and whatnot, it wasn't about fighting. It was about, again, the objective was you throw a punch just prior to hitting or slight hitting or whatnot. It wasn't full contact at that time. And so Bruce Lee made a distinction between fighting and martial arts. In fact, prior to that, I don't know, it was a little too advanced. He talked about certain guys. He talked about Chuck Norris. He said Chuck Norris was a good martial artist, but he didn't think he was a good fighter. So he's making this distinction between what fighting is and what martial arts is. Now, my understanding from everything that I've known about, studied about martial arts is basically it's about bodily expression. It's about movement in certain ways. It's about strengthening the body, making the entire body a weapon. And it's about expression of the body in a physical form. But when you talk about fighting, you're basically talking about three things: striking, kicking, and grappling. Now, martial arts, there is an overlap. Obviously, you do strikes in karate or whatever the discipline is, and there's probably kicking involved and whatnot, and even maybe some little grappling. But the purest forms of that is boxing. Obviously, you're going to have your kicking techniques from the martial arts, but then also for grappling, that's wrestling. Whether it be Greco-Roman or freestyle or whatever, and that always goes back to the Greeks in their early games in the Olympics and everything. So that's combat. But you can do a whole round of martial arts without ever having any combat whatsoever. There's certain forms like Tai Chi, at least as it is now, is not typically meant for that. And even the mindset of those who engage in it is not for fighting. In fact, you have a lot of martial arts where the first thing you learn is not to fight. There's a famous scene out of Karate Kid. You remember when Daniel and Miyagi are on the boat, and Miyagi asks him, "Why are we doing all this training?" "So I don't have to fight." But if you're talking about combat or combat sports, the objective is to fight. So then you're going to have a mindset that may be different for the boxer or even the wrestler, that might be different from the martial artist. And sometimes that difference can mean the difference between winning and losing in an actual combative situation, not a tournament or a sanction kind of thing. We're talking about on the real. That if you have to go into a fight, a street fight, for example, what would you use? How would a martial artist do in a street fight? And the general take from guys I've been listening to is saying they're not going to do very well, because in principle, they're not really taught to fight. Forms and katas and things of that nature, that all those things are important. It's a discipline. I got no disrespect for any martial art. But these guys are saying what's if it's going to come to that kind of situation, what are you going to use? Let me go to my second video. Again, playing a short. And this is Michael Jai White. Okay. Been basically a martial artist most 50 years. The guy's been out there. He's a movie actor, very successful, but he's a legit martial artist. He's not just doing this for show.
He's one of the best martial artists in the world. Right?
Correct. Now listen to what he says about martial arts and what is useful in situations. So let's take a look at what he has to say on the subject.
If somebody had a street fight, I would still give the edge to the boxer. Then it would be the wrestler. It would not be the martial artist on a street fight.
Yeah.
It would not be the karate guy. I would go to Thai boxing right after that. Because these things, like when you're boxing, you are fighting. You are striking the face. You're getting struck in the face fully. In karate, you are not getting hit fully. It's kind of a business. Boxing, you learn how to fight. Wrestling, you learn how to fight.
Most street fights end up on the ground too. So on the
I
ground.
absolutely disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah, because it starts on the feet.
It starts on your feet.
Somebody ends up on the ground probably, but somebody who knows how to box gets in an altercation, they're probably not going to the ground. Unless you are another professional boxer, you don't know how to block that. You just don't. And you're dealing with fractions of seconds. So, so boxer,
Number one.
wrestler,
Number two.
Thai boxing.
Number three.
Yeah, because a leg kick or whatever, somebody knows how to throw a leg kick, you don't know how to block that either.
It's
Okay. So again, this isn't me. This is, as you just said, he's one of the greatest martial artists living.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in a street fight that he would pick boxing number 1, wrestling number 2, and then Thai boxing number 3, not the martial artist. Because again, in a lot of practice, a lot of martial artists aren't taught combat. It's discipline. It's hard work. You dedicate your life to it. It's also philosophy. It's spiritual. It's all these things. But in a street fighting situation, a lot of that stuff may go out the window. Where it's a life or death situation, and will you be able to respond because you've been taught in a combat situation? Boxing is combat. Wrestling is combat. We don't care about your breathing and your meditation and your emptying your mind and all this kind of stuff. It's like it's me and you, and one of us has got to live and one has got to lose. So he's saying that. So again, I'm not putting this these ideas. Martial artist Bruce Lee said it. Michael Jai White said it. Now here's another guy that I've listened to over the. What's that?
Before we move on, I want to throw my 2 cents in here, but I want to go
Okay.
too far. Okay. So with the first video, so yes, I'll give them that. In a tournament, you do not do full contact. That's because it's tournaments. You're not doing it for money. You're doing it for tournaments. But those I can't even say tournaments. The karate matches, the real karate matches, you do full contact. You don't see them too much in the States because it's not really that popular over here. You do see it more overseas. I mean, like Japan and the Korean country, Asian countries. It is very popular over there. Like we have boxing here is popular. That's their combat sport over there. Okay, so with the contact thing, they're right and wrong at the same time. They're right. Yes, it is not full contact here. When you go to the tournament, you don't do full contact, except if when you back in the day when I was coming in, it was the World Martial Arts Tournament. That was the Royal Corral Mount Olympus tournament you want to win. That was full contact. When I trained, and this is where I'm going to jump into the second video, is you don't really hit contact. When my instructor's mentality was, you're going to fight on the street. You're not going to go, okay, I point. No, you're fighting for real in here. You're going full contact. I don't care if you knock your goddamn teeth out. And you should joke around with the parents like my we don't have a dental plan. I usually hang a math card. There's my dental plan. So I used to go out there sometimes bloody as hell. I have broken my nose multiple times. I have broken my wrist multiple times, my arms multiple times, my legs, uh, my ribs. I can't even count how many times I broke my goddamn ribs. Those, suck, by the way. So I have done full contact training, meaning
Okay.
boom,
Which
boom,
is
boom.
and again, what did I say at the beginning of the show?
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm
My
just,
sense.
I got you.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said. That for a lot of times, what happens is I'm talking generally, or the comments that are being made generally. That doesn't mean that because you're a martial artist you don't know how to fight, or you can't learn how to fight, or that you're not taught how to fight. In your case, it was unique. But again, if you're gonna have a conversation, it can't always go to one's personal experience.
and I agree.
And so I think your professor, and Eric is talking about, again, Sensei Pancinella from Highland Park. He was a police officer in Highland Park. Absolutely. So again, it's everyone's going to point to, well, in my school we did this, or in my school we did that. But we're talking about the general state of how things are.
Yeah.
In general.
Another example. Remember when I told you, I can't remember which show it was. It when I went for my black belt test, I had to go out and study another style.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going full contact. They were going semi contact. And when I trained, I was training there, and then the instructor, I said at the beginning of my opening monologue, the head sensei goes to me, "You know something?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know a thing or two." We put the gloves on. We went at it. I still respected him as a sensei. I respected the dojo, so I held back a little bit. And I'm not saying I won. I'm not saying I lost. What I am saying, he was surprised how much contact I was using because he was not used to that. And that's one thing I will give you 100%. 90% of schools don't do full contact. And the reason is, and I don't agree with this reason, is if you beat up your partner, you have nobody to train with.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you wear pads. This is why you wear groin cups. This is why mouthpieces. That's why you have the protective pieces. Same thing with boxing. They wear all the protective padding so you don't delete the next person when you're training with them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He can come back the next day like, okay, let's go again.
Mm-hmm.
So that part I will give you 100%. And I'm
right. And even to Eric's point about, again, the sense, like I said, this guy was a hardcore as it gets. This guy's a police officer in Highland Park. You would see him running through Main Street in Highland Park barefoot in the summer. I mean, the guy was just hardcore. I mean, I don't know if he had a military background or not, but again, his approach may have been a little bit different from anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
But his thing was about toughening these kids up and all this kind of stuff. The guy was a brick. I mean, just physically. I mean, you didn't want to mess with this guy under any circumstances. You know, if you were going to get drunk and act up with this guy, he was no joke. So I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that martial arts as a whole, or that they're not specific. Well, yes, there's very tough schools, there's very tough training. There's a lot of training that goes underground because of the very reasons that you're talking about. Yeah. Because if it was above ground, then some people getting arrested, or they're going to shut you down.
Yeah, I know for a fact, overseas in Japan, when they're training Okinawa Shonryu, they're full contact the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no semi-contact or light contact. And overseas, it's a whole different world. And there are so many documentaries. Do you remember the documentary Human Weapon on History Channel any chance?
No.
So it was a documentary about human weapon. The point of the documentary, they're trying to find the best martial art in the world. All right. So they trained on the Greco wrestling. They trained in Tai Chi. They trained in karate. They were going full force, and those guys trained.
Right.
And they were like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah. So even Eric, he answered the question. So his sensei was ex-military. So again, if you got a military background. And if his sensei is such, he's going back to war, Vietnam, whatever that is. That's a totally different mindset than someone who's trying to achieve inner peace and harmony. You know what I'm saying? So again, the mindset here is another factor to this. If you are going to be in that situation, is your mindset going to be such where you can handle that? Now, here's another guy I got here. This guy's from originally from the States, from Utah. From Idaho, but he's a Mormon. Lives and trains, has his own studio in China. And he, I've been following a lot of his content and a lot of things he's been saying. And he asked this question. Let's talk about, again, the general state of martial arts versus boxing. So I want to get just play a little bit of what he has to say here. And then if need be, I got another video from him where he compares the two. But I think the Michael Jai White one kind of, level set, and he kind of agrees with some of that as well. So I don't want to just keep repeating. But let me play a little bit of him as he's basically doing a Q&A talking about boxing versus traditional martial arts. So let me just cue this up. Okay, here we go.
It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the coach. Our friend Cody sent me this question. He says, I can't find an answer to this question. Why has the art or sport of boxing stayed very legit, while other combat arts like karate and some other arts have become synonymous with McDojos? Well, Cody, that is very, very simple. You can't fake boxing. Either you box or you don't. Whereas with karate and many other traditional martial arts, you can go to a karate class, a taekwondo class, a kung fu class, all these other traditional martial arts classes, without actually learning how to fight, without any real hands-on fighting, sparring experience. You don't have to get in the ring with many of these. Some of them you do. There are some hardcore traditional martial arts classes out there where you really learn how to fight, but there are many, many where you don't. Where all you have to do for a belt promotion is do the right forms, bow to the right people, pay the right hands, and then there you go, instant black belt. Whereas with boxing, imagine if boxing worked that way for a minute. If you just had to do some boxing kata or something like that, or be good enough on the speed bag and hit the heavy bag enough and pay the right people the right sums of money, and then all of a sudden they were like, yep, you, my friend, are a good boxer. And then this guy pats himself on the back. Hey, I'm a good boxer because I passed all the tests. I checked all the little boxes. So now I'm good to go. And then they get in a fight, and then they get killed because they don't actually know how to box. And everyone sees that, and they're like, well, dang, boxing sucks. That guy didn't know how to fight. But what has kept boxing legitimate is the fact that the sport of boxing is prevalent and popular, and boxing itself, the act of boxing, getting in the ring, putting on the gloves, sparring, trading punches, is synonymous with the word boxing. Whereas doing the equivalent of sparring is not synonymous with karate or taekwondo or kung fu or any of that stuff. Because the system of traditional martial arts, which means following a tradition, and following the tradition takes a greater deal of importance in the dojo than actually learning how to fight, how to be an efficient and effective fighter. Whereas in a combat sport, what takes precedence there is becoming an efficient and effective fighter, being able to win at the sport. Let's look at some other sports. What's a sport out there? Oh, basketball.
I'll stop there. But again, he makes the point again. Now, again, the idea that this McDojo, right? These karate franchises, these family karate centers, where all they are is simply just gym class for your kids. Like if you go there, you see the window, kids are doing jumping jacks and they're jumping around and stuff, and they got their karate gis on. It's just an activity to keep the kids happy, but no one's really learning any fighting there. But if you're a 6-year-old and you go to a boxing gym, or a 6-year-old and you get on a wrestling mat, you're going to learn how to wrestle. Like the objective is wrestling. The objective is boxing. There's no pulling that back on punches. There's no, I mean, obviously there's rules. Don't hit below the waist and below the belt, certain things like that. But, but generally you are learning how to hit and not get hit, how to defend, how to have proper timing, how to have footwork, to hit with full force, or to wrestle, to take down your opponent and keep them pinned. All those things which would be essential in a street situation. And so, so again, there's a lot of aspects of martial arts. Even if you were to break it down by percentage, what percentage of traditional martial arts, no MMA, take that off the table. Traditional martial arts, generally, because again, I know you have an exception and Eric's going to have an exception and everyone's going to have an exception. What percentage of the martial arts is dealing with combat? If it takes you 3 months to learn a kata for a test, so you're testing for a rank or something, how much time and effort do you have to learn into your katas when you have to perform them? Because I've gone to black belt tests, and none of the tests that had anything to do with fighting. It was board breaking, brick breaking, forms. It was then they did something in the forest or in the I don't know, some other kind of endurance, something outside, something or whatever. But it wasn't like guys were squaring off, hitting each other full contact, and you got to beat. Or like I know in Kyokushinkai karate, like from that Fighting Black Kings documentary that I remember seeing, and it was bloody, it was brutal. Full contact and everything, that you had, in order to get your black belt, you had to beat like 7 guys who were higher ranked than you at black belt or higher to get your black belt. And there was a scene in there with a guy, he got his black belt, Eric remembers this, he was getting beat up, bloody and everything. He crying, like he didn't think he could do it. But at the end, they put the black belt on him. He's bloody, they're carrying him off. But he had to endure it. And I don't even think he beat most of these. He just had to survive, I guess, the black belts. He didn't necessarily beat them, but he had to survive whatever the time limit was. But it was full contact, and they were hitting this guy flush in the face. But again, that is very rare. But the current state of martial arts with the McDojo, the franchise systems, the karate systems, are you really learning? Guys, men, women, children getting these black belts. But can they really fight? If they really had a situation, could they really fight? Most can't. But if you know boxing, you can't fake that. You know wrestling, you can't fake that. So again, I'm talking generally, not specifically tied to anyone's experience.
Okay. Let me jump here for a second, all right?
Sure.
Couple things. Number one, as much I love my martial arts, and you know how much a fan I am of this, it's sad, very, very sad. I'm going to touch base on Eric's comment in a minute. Very sad how the school systems now of martial arts are McDojos. For example, I know this guy, and I'm talking to him like he just got his third 10th degree black belt. Third. Keyword, ladies and gentlemen, third. It takes a lifetime, and I'm not even being sugarcoating this. I'm not trying to over dramatic this. It's literally, and if you know any real martial art, they will tell you it takes a lifetime to learn your 10th degree. I only know two 10th degrees. Most of them are ninth. I know two and two, yeah, two ninth. Excuse me. I know two 10th degrees. That was Master Ray and Shen, Master Shen. Master Ray, when he passed, the 10th goes to him. That's how most styles are. Now with Professor Garrity and Shion Hunter in a VR and Vijitsu, they never want to go to the 10th because it was too much responsibility for them to run the whole system. They didn't want. They had everyday jobs, families, yada yada yada. That's why they stopped at ninth.
But let me ask you a question before you go on, though.
Yeah.
What is the degree based on? Because from what you just said, it has absolutely nothing to do with fighting at all. How you go from 9th to 10th, someone has to die. It didn't say that you had to delete them. You guys get in the ring, the 10th degree versus the 9th degree. You beat the 10th degree, and you become the 10th degree. Someone has to pass on. Or you said the responsibilities. But what does that have to do with fighting? Does the guy mean that he is a better fighter? You probably got some guys at third. I mean, real talk. I mean, and I know respect
right.
for all these older guys in their 70s and their 80s. Respect to them. They know pressure points and all that kind of stuff. But you get like a third degree guy, 25, 30 years old, and squares up against this older master who's 8th, 9th, 10th degree. He could probably beat him. So again, promotion is not based on beating someone.
Correct.
Whereas boxing is. How do you advance in boxing? You have to beat people.
Yeah,
fight after fight after fight after fight.
The only instructor that I knew that was a 10th degree black belt, and if you challenged him in a ring with the gloves, 9 out of 10 times you're going to lose, and that was Master Ray. Again, that's personal experience. I know everybody's different. So I want to touch base on the McDojo very specifically right now, and I want to go to Eric's comment next. So McDojos, I am so disgusted this came out. You can literally go online. I don't know the websites. You type in whatever, and you can literally take a course. I'm not sure how long it is. Let's say it's a week course for argument's sake. All right. Pay X, Y, Z numbers and get it. And this is where martial art has given a bad name. I'm not talking Pacific now. I'm going all martial arts. It gave a disgusting name. And Anton has a great example here. And I'm going to name another school on top of that. Tiger Soulman is a perfect example. If you remember in the early 90s and 2000s, they were all over the place.
I remember. Yep.
Because
There's still a couple around here. There's still a couple around here.
They got sued because a lot of people got hurt thinking, I'm a martial artist. I got a black belt. Yeah, it didn't work out like that.
Yeah.
I had students of mine coming from Jersey into Mount Pocono, and they looked at me like, oh, I'm so-and-so. Like, no, you're not. I told them straight up. American Karate is another one. And I can go on and on. They were popping on right and left. They still are, but not as big names like they were in the past. I cannot tell you how many schools I walked in. Now, to Eric's comment, and let's put it back on the screen for a second, it is the parents' responsibility to disqualify those dojo schools. Ask the right questions. Now, you're going to argue with me, but Spartan, I never done martial arts. How can I ask? Maybe you know somebody. Alicia, who used to come on the show with us, all right? And she looked at me one time. It was years ago. Her son was younger. She goes, I need to get him some discipline. I need to get him something to burn his energy. I need him something to punch. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? He's not punching me. He goes, no. I want him to put him in martial arts, but I want him to actually fight. I go, oh, okay. You want me to go with you and find out schools? Yeah. We walked into 10 different schools. 2, they're only legit schools. Everything else was bullshit. I asked.
Well, I'll even add on to that.
Yeah.
Alicia's request is not going to be asked by most parents, especially if you're a parent in the suburbs or you're like in the upper classes. You're just looking for an activity for your kid. Like you said, you want to burn some energy off and get some discipline and whatnot. You don't want your kid fighting.
Not arguing at all.
Because that's not the mindset of most of these parents. It's like, look, I drop off my kid at 5. I got to go do something, yada, yada, yada. Me and my husband come back. We pick up the kids at 7. I don't care what you do with them between now and then. Or if they only do forms, then that's good enough. And again, how many times you go to the promotion ceremonies and all they're doing is forms, or they break a board or something like that, and everyone claps and say, "Yay, yay, Johnny broke the board," and that's it.
Actually, so anybody who wants to join the conversation, respectfully, I put the rules in the chat and I put the link. So please be respectful, or I'm gonna kick your ass out. Simple as that. I'm not playing. That's a nice way of doing it.
Right.
So okay, so first of all, a black belt test should not have a crowd in front of you. That is they do it in private for a couple of reasons. One, it's you don't need other eyes having the pressure of that like the audience. It kind of feels weird because it's a lot going on at the time. You know what I'm saying? You have enough pressure. Like you have several instructors yelling at you. You have all this stuff. Is no breaking boards. There's a break. Like my own instructor used to use similar thing like Mr. Miyagi used to say. Does the board ever hit back? No. Why hit it? Does the brick hit back?
Well, like I said, the one I went to, and this was 10 years ago, for my friend, a college friend of mine, and he got his, and it was a mixed crowd, girls, boys, teenagers, students, or whatever. It was a mixed class, but everything that you said, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Taekwondo.
And this was Shotokan karate, by the way, just to
Taekwondo. I have lost a lot of respect over the years for some reasons. Their Korean style martial arts test in groups. I was always against that because if you're, let's say we're in a group, they tell us, okay, do form 6 or form 6. Okay, I'm just gonna use I'm gonna use fancy names and use simple names. Okay. You start doing form 6, and all of a sudden you brain farted the move. You look behind you. Oh, okay. You can cheat very easily. With Master Ray, it was never knowing the moves correctly. It was more about if you're going to freeze. If you say you did down block, reverse punch, and it's supposed to be down block, uppercut, or whatever, right? But you didn't freeze. You still went with it. Because in a fight, you can't freeze. You got to go. That was the point. You can do the form completely wrong. He will still pass you because you didn't freeze. When it came to the match, in the end, you always sparred everybody in the room. The white belts sparred all the way to the black belts. Obviously, the white belt is not going to beat the black belt. We know that. But the point is you did not give up. That was the point of the test. He didn't care if you won. He cared if you didn't give up. I remember my black belt test. I didn't give up. I got knocked out, actually. And I went for it, and I continued going. When I got knocked out, I woke up. He goes, "Good news, you passed." I'm like,
but see, but that's a totally different.
Obviously, I'm not disagreeing with that. But most schools, you're right. They do a group test. The only kind of ceremony they do when you actually receive the tea ceremony, we call it. Similar. You have a little. You don't actually have what is that called? Sake. There's supposed to be sake. You drink it. Blah blah blah. You got your need
Sake.
Yeah. You're supposed to do that.
Japanese rice wine.
They don't really give you sake. They give you like
water,
warm water or some shit like that, right? So that was that's the only part you can see as the outsider yourself. Doing it in a group or watching a test, that is so no from the real arts.
I got you.
Unfortunately, we're not in this world. I have a couple of videos still. One of the videos have said the martial arts have changed so much in the 30 years. I agree and disagree with that comment. It changed a lot of good, but a lot of bad. For example, McDojos. Another example, group tests. Another example, testing in front of an audience. All this stuff is a no-no in martial arts.
Again, I want to go back to what you just said.
Yeah.
You got knocked out and you passed. How does that work in boxing? How does that work in wrestling? Or Thai boxing? It doesn't. You advance by winning. And if you don't win, like I said, especially if you're in a ranking system, guess what? You get knocked down. And you have to work your way back up to that position until you win.
And this one I'm going to give you right. In a tournament setting, and again, my time.
No, I'm talking about in your case, in a promotion.
Yeah.
You said you basically you got promoted by your ability to endure. Not that you won, but you didn't quit.
Yeah.
In boxing, you get no reward for that at all.
You're 100% right.
So I'm saying, so think about the mindset of the boxer versus the mindset of the martial artist. If we got to go toe to toe, who is going to have the edge? Especially when you talk about fighting spirit, who's going to have the edge? The one who's been trained since whenever. It's win or lose, and if you lose, you go back to the end of the line. Because either winning or losing or quitting. That's it. That you don't have any other options. We're not going to give you a participation trophy. Only in the Olympics where you get gold, silver, and bronze. So you can lose, get a bronze, but you cannot win. You cannot advance to the next round unless you win. No one cares. So again, the mindset, the whole idea of delete or be deleted is prevalent in these combat in wrestling, in boxing, in Thai boxing. It has to be there. But if the whole basis of a lot of these martial arts systems, this promotion system, has nothing to do with combat or winning.
Unfortunately, the belt system there was really made for kids mostly. Back in the day, when I'm talking about medieval times, obviously. All right, a little history lesson. The only way you got a black belt is by training and getting promoted. You couldn't lose a fight, like you said. The reason your belt became black over time is from training, because you only had one belt, and you had that from recruit all the way to whatever.
Mhm.
That's how your belt became black. Now these kids come in, and I hate to say this, I'm gonna be straight up with you. They look at the belt. Oh, I want a black belt. I want a black belt. That's all they look at, the black belt.
Mhm.
As much as I hate to say this, and most business karate owners are going to say this, and Master Ray said it, but he did it a different way, and this is an exception again. The kids pay the bills. As much as I hate to say that, that's the facts.
Mhm.
I hate to sit there and tell you, yes, I can train a kid to be one of the best fighters in the world. I can't tell you that, because most kids don't have the mindset like that. The adults do. Now, if you came in my school in your younger age and you said, I want to be the best martial artist in the world, I want to fight. Okay, now we're talking.
Well, see, but for what I'm saying, that's two separate things.
Of course, I'm not
You
disagreeing.
can be a great martial artist. You may not know how to fight, though.
Yeah, I'm not
Because I think, part of fighting, I think it has to be something inside you. You know what I'm saying? I don't get into all the shit, all of the philosophical, but again, that idea of fighting spirit, like you got to have that we call it that dog. If you don't have that dog, you can be great up to a point, but again, because especially if you're in the street, if you're in a situation like someone's trying to rob you because they starving, are you going to have that dog in you to not freeze in that situation? Because that 1 second pause or whatever could mean life or death. And not everybody has that. Boxing weeds those people out. Because, again, you're going to be taking punches to the face very early. And you either got to learn how to either hit back harder or how to take it or how to dodge it. But you're not going to take this out of the sport. This from day one. You getting tagged. But you can go the whole route. In fact, the point that Ramsey Dewar was making, the next point he was about to make before I cut it off, imagine basketball where you learn how to shoot, you learn how to dribble, you can do all the behind the back, in the legs, you do all the drills, you do all the running and all that kind of stuff, but you never get on the court and play. You only get good at basketball really by playing it. And so again, but you can build an entire martial arts curriculum around something that has nothing to do with combat. And so that, to me, that's the difference. And I think that's what, again, all these martial arts, this isn't me. Some of the top martial artists ever, that these guys are basically saying that in a real situation, you're better off having boxing or wrestling, which is, again, the reason why I think MMA has grown where it is. That you talk about the state of martial arts in this country, what's made the difference, I think, is MMA.
Absolutely.
Because they've incorporated wrestling and boxing into it. And again, Bruce Lee had an amateur boxing background. I think he won some title in Hong Kong, a championship in Hong Kong.
I think so.
Yeah, but then he also learned fencing. So shout out to Anton. He has a fencing background. He studied fencing. He put the fencing stances into his Jeet Kune Do art. So again, he took Western combat and incorporated that into Eastern martial arts. And it was like revolutionary at the time. And then you had the schools who were like, he's not teaching pure Wing Chun. He's doing something else, a bastardized version of it. He got a lot of flack for that. But now the dominant martial art now, in fact, I don't even know. I would love to know, what the status of martial arts schools is in America. I mean, I think certainly MMA has, certainly catapulted probably to the top. You can go anywhere and find an MMA studio. I don't know how many outside of the kids and, like I said, the Tiger Showmans and whatnot. I don't know where you're gonna find martial arts studios that can compete with what MMA studios are putting up today.
Honestly, Mr. Ben, Paul, I grew up within Taekwondo when I was a kid, and I still have a bit of a connection to my sister. There's still some Taekwondo studios around. You just have to know where they're at. And like I said, it's a tight-knit group, so they're not going to put everything out there for people to know. So it's always about who you know. Like my sister, for example, she got a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. She got it right before, I think, she graduated high school. She was always good fighting. When she came up fighting, she was one of only, I think, 3 women in the school. One is a college professor that I still see from time to time. And the other woman, I remember I haven't seen her in a while, but the last time I remember seeing her was at the funeral of a black belt that I remember growing up knowing sometime back. My sister still stays in touch with a lot of them. My sister was a very good fighter. She fights like a dude. I remember some women telling me she fights like a dude. One of the first senior black belts that she had that helped train her fought in the Olympics, her Perez. And that's when Taekwondo was a demonstration sport back in '92. He got a job working as the coach for the national team. Every time he was in Jersey, he would call her up and say, "Hey, the team is in town. You want to do a little bit of fighting?" My sister would get me and my brother. She grabbed her gear. We go down to Rutgers and watching her fight and everything else. And she was that good. But the problem was there was this one other woman that was on the national team. She could never beat her to get a spot on the Olympic team. That's how good my sister was. She fought in U.S. Open Cup tournaments. She's gotten calls to fight for the national team in tournaments overseas in South America and in Europe. She got invited to take part in the World Championships back in '93 when it was in St. Petersburg, Russia. In '94 when the World Taekwondo tournament, when the World Tournament was here in the States at Madison Square Garden, my sister got to take part in that. And we even had the translator for the Russian team stay at our house for a few days.
Wow.
That's how heavy in Taekwondo my brother, sister, and I were in. And my sister, despite being only like 5'2", was that good of a fighter.
And believe it or not, and again, I'm talking a little about my ass. I'm going to say it. From my personal experience, the shorter fighters are always the better fighters.
Exactly.
Because they have to compensate of the distance. They have to compensate the pose. They have to compensate.
Well, look, they say speed. Look, speed kills, right?
Yeah.
It's typically. I
And,
mean,
and my sister's a
you can
small
do all that
target,
stuff.
so
Yeah.
my sister's a small target. And I remember one tournament she fought in at Rutgers, and I think she had to fight dudes and beat them. I think she came in third place in that tournament, if I remember. I was like one of her first tournaments that she fought in, and she came in third place out of I forgot how many combatants, and most of them were guys.
Now,
And
this
a
is
lot
full
of the guys
contact, or this is like point stuff?
This was full contact. This was full contact, and she's fought in point tournaments as well. She's fought in both full contact and point tournaments, and it's finished either in first or second place. Like you go to my parents' house, you're gonna find trophies, you're gonna find medals, you're gonna find a lot of things that she's accomplished in Taekwondo. One of the things that
I think back in
what's
the
up?
day, in the 90s and 2000s, when martial arts was really blowing up, it was no point shit. It was not low contact. It was full force at one point. The point contact came in the late 2010s. We got all softy and we gotta go. Everybody has to get a trophy. And I looked at him like, you can shove that trophy up your asses. I won. Back in the day,
What?
it was legit. And Anton,
Yeah.
please correct me if I'm wrong. Full contact at one time was like for a good 10 to 20 years. It was full contact.
Yeah.
Before we got too political and too softy for just a little tap on a verse. Come on now.
You had and the thing was back then, Peter, and you probably remember this at a lot of tournaments. If you scored, you had to literally land a legitimate hit, a legitimate kick, or a legitimate punch to score because you had judges who were black belts also. Could tell the difference between someone who was legit and those who were just going through the motions. And if you going through the motions, they were not going to score your. They were not going to score you your points. Plain and simple. That's just how they are.
Right.
Like you landed a legitimate shot, a clean shot, they're going to give you the point. If they see you going through the motions that may look like you made contact, they're not going to give you the point. They want to see contact. Complete contact. Say again?
Good example. I'll give you guys a good example. When the War Martial Arts tournament was around, you had to earn your stripes into it, meaning it was a point system for other tournaments. So you had to compete at a tournament, you earned your points, and you moved up. Like similar as boxing. After you win a match, you move up to the next, or whoever you fight is next. Similar case in the War Martial Arts tournament. You build up, and I don't remember how the point system went exactly because it's been so many years. So eventually, they don't ask to be a part of the tournament. You don't just show up. They'll ask you to come to this tournament. You will get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you haven't earned enough points to be a part of the War Martial Arts tournament. If you like, please respond to this letter. Blah, blah, blah. It was a whole package and a waiver. We're not responsible for any injuries, blah, 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 blah. All that nice stuff. And you had to pay a fee. Same thing as boxers. They pay a fee to get into the lower fights at the TV fights. So, and in the end of the match, when you get there, you got your briefing, obviously, your little tournament rules and everything, because everything a little different, but they're all pretty similar. They'll tell you, the person who will win this match will, win the tournament, will win X, Y, and Z numbers, dollars. Like, or you see everybody's hair stuck up, and everybody got all straightforward, like, money? Now we're talking. Now they're gonna fight for a legit fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're not gonna block. I see tournaments get bloody. I mean bloody. Even today, there's supposed to be no contact, but black belt division is a little different, Paul, because black belt division is still full contact to this day. Because they believe if you're a black belt and you cannot block a punch or take a punch, you do not deserve to wear that belt.
Exactly.
I got you. Want to move on to another point, but I just want to Eric asked the question, what does he think about Sifu Francis Fong's approach? I don't know everything about his approach. I just think that, well, first of all, I think that Wing Chun, just like to watch, like when you see demonstrations and whatnot, Wing Chun is one of the prettiest arts to watch. You got those really fast hands. You see the guys working on the wooden man dummies and whatnot, and it's pretty, And certainly a lot of the demonstrations that he does, he usually has this kid, he's not a kid, but this younger guy. And he's always doing the lessons with him. And he's striking him every time the guy throws a punch. He hits him in the throat. He hits him there. But again, he's demonstrating. Like, I haven't seen Sipo Fong actually fight anybody. And again, anybody can look good in a demonstration. Look at Steven Seagal. Now, I don't know what you think is Hapkido a legit martial art or not. But you go into a room and he's just flipping these guys over. It looks like, oh my gosh, he's like the greatest martial arts ever. If you ask legit martial artists, they say he really wasn't that good.
Right.
But it was like performance more so than an actual martial art. So again, Francis Fong, respected, got a guy, he got training, I think, from Dan Inosanto, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he got any training from Bruce, but I think it was like one of his disciples, if not Dan Inosanto, kind of schooled him. But yeah, you see him in those, he's hand to hand. The guy's like, if the guy comes here, I hit him here. If he comes this way, I hit this here. He knows what's coming. So again, it looks cool. I just don't know if it's in a practical situation. First of all, Wing Chun is limited in some ways because, again, you have to be in really close quarters.
Correct.
For all that stuff to work. So again, I'm not down the man or what he provides. And again, Wing Chun, certainly Bruce Lee got his, he cut his bones on it. That was his root. But then again, he grew from that. He himself said that Wing Chun was very limiting in certain things, which is why he brought in the boxing and why he brought in the fencing and the footwork and all those other things.
And the next point, limitation, Paul.
Yeah. But then also when it comes to limitations in terms of, again, what looks cool. So again, Taekwondo is known for, again, the kicks, the kicking. The roundhouse kicks, the spinning kicks, the flying kicks, all that stuff looks cool. Now, Bruce Lee, he didn't believe that kicks above the waist were mostly useless. And you even see it now with mixed martial arts. I mean, yeah, every once in a while in an MMA fight, you'll see someone get knocked out with a roundhouse. And everybody goes crazy. Like, oh, wow, that looks cool.
Here's the thing.
But most kicks, 80-90% of the kicks in an MMA fight are kicked to the knee or to the shin area. You want to disable the lower leg.
So
because that's also the thing that's near. Now it's this whole Jeet Kune Do. It's like the nearest target, especially if a guy's in a fighting stance, the nearest target is going to be his lead leg. So that's the closest thing you're going to hit, the way of the intercepting fist. You're going to intercept that point. But it looks cool when these guys can do full leg splits and kick overhead and do all these flying kicks. It's beautiful. But how practical is it? Would you do that in the street? Would you do that in or another martial artist? So again, so you also have to separate the art. Again, it's martial arts, and that is a physical art form when you see these people able to do these amazing things. It's still not necessarily fighting. You have to ask yourself, because if you do that, if you're with the wrong person, you're leaving yourself vulnerable a lot of times when you do those things.
So a couple of things. I want to touch base on a couple of things. Number one, the kicks. Let's go over that for a second. So Bruce Lee was 100% right. Once you go over the hip, it loses. So this is the best way I can explain it. This is explained to me. Under the belt is 100% power. When you start raising it, you start losing 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. Once you get over the belt, the hip, you're at 50%. Now you're decreasing even more, 40%, and so on. Rare occasion when people can do a roundhouse kick to their face, you hear them go lights out. Very, very, very rare. So that's one. What was it? My second point? Oh man, I just lost brain fog. What was your second point, Paul? You were saying?
No, I'm just saying the like I said, it looks pretty when you're seeing these things, but again, is it practical in a fight?
So when it comes down to Kung Fu is really big on this. Spin kicks, jump kicks. You do not ever leave the ground because you keep yourself open. When any kind of jump kicks,
Mm-hmm.
simple. If I'm a martial artist and another martial artist, I'll use that for example, does a jump kick, just kick him in the fucking chest or in the knee.
Yep.
He goes going flying down. He's on the ground now. That's one. Spin kick. When you spin, you are literally exposing your back of your head. It's called blind techniques for a reason because you weren't spinning. You just go hope the best. Just it. Hope the best. You spin in now. Hopefully you contacts. Hope not because for that I think it's about 3 to 4 seconds. You don't see anything. But you're turning around. You don't see anything. You're back here. So and I was taught first thing of a spinning hook kick. When he's turning, that's your opportunity to strike right behind his head. Like
or the back of the leg if you want to make a statement.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Or kick him in the back of the leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that documentary I keep talking about. Again, if you guys get a chance to see it, again, Fighting Black Kings, 1975, open tournament in Japan. A lot of those spinning kicks you saw in the earlier rounds. Because, again, it was open. Like, you had karate guys fighting kung fu guys, fighting Thai boxers. And it was an open tournament. So you saw a lot of those highlights from the tournament where, yeah, guy does a spinning kick, guy's knocked out, they're carrying a guy off on the sheet and all that kind of stuff. But once you started getting to, like, the finals, like, what really worked was, again, the low kicks, the inside punching and things like there's certain things that just only work up to a certain time. I mean, you get trained to a point where you can see that and anticipate those things coming. And I used to have this guy. I remember this guy Chong Lee. He was I think he was an early in the early days of kickboxing / MMA fighting. He would look very good against like the prelim guys or the guys who were clearly he was better than. You saw him in the ring, and he would do all kinds of crazy stuff in the ring because the guy, again, he wasn't experienced enough to kind of see it coming. And it looked great, and the crowd's going oohs and ahs. But again, you put him up against like a legit, real guy, you're not doing that stuff anymore. So I'm wondering if martial arts, to an extent, is its kind of its own worst enemy, in that everybody gets attracted to the flashy moves, but it really doesn't work. In boxing, there's very few flashy moves, right? Roy Jones, he could do something. He can go behind his back and hit a guy, but again, that's rare. That's like, but again, later in his career when he got against different competition, he stopped doing that. Right. He wound up getting knocked out himself. So again, the is the art, and I guess the question for you guys, since you study martial arts, and for those in the chat, does martial arts, with everything that we said tonight about the McDojos and the lack of, how the promotional systems work and all that kind of stuff, does martial arts itself, how it markets itself? If all you're going to see is the stuff that doesn't work in the street, but that's what's pulling people in, and people want to know how to do a spinning jump kick, and then they get out in the street and they get laid out, and now you're complaining because you want to get your money back because you didn't learn anything. But is martial arts also shooting itself in the foot by only showing those things about it that are sensational, but not necessarily practical? And like I said, in the tournaments, when you get to the finals, it's not pretty at all. I mean, and even the whole martial arts movie, the kung fu movie industry, no one fights like that. It's great. It's artistry. I look at it as dance. It's like like dancing on a wire. Jackie Chan, all those guys. Shout out to them. I love it. I'm a huge martial arts kung fu movie guy or whatever. But even I know, it's like professional wrestling. Even I know, this ain't real, right?
Okay,
so
to that point,
yeah.
In the martial art world, when you see that, it's called Kung Fu Hollywood for a reason. It's because it's all Hollywood. Like Soman Tiger, and what was it, Dragon or something like that. I can't remember the movie.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That is a perfect example. That was all Hollywood, wire work, and all of that stuff. Now with Chucky Chan, he is a real martial artist. Don't knock him. He is a master of the drunken technique. And when he acts like he's all drunk and everything, that is a real technique. And it takes years to master that.
Right.
He's one of the few people who has mastered it. So if you put him in, like in his younger age, obviously not now. He's like 110 years old, I think.
Yeah.
He's not back in his younger age. If he had a fight in a real fight, I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm not saying he's going to lose. I'm saying he will.
Hold his own.
I'm sorry.
He will hold his
He'll
own.
hold his own. Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point. I'm trying to get. He will make you earn the W if he lost it, or he's gonna definitely earn his W himself if it was whatever the case was. He will challenge you every single way, shape, way, or form. No questions about it. You gotta give him credit when it's due.
Yeah, and that's it. And there's guys go back now. Again, would I say Jet Li is he a fight? I don't know. I know he's a wushu guy, and had a lot of that. But again, that's a performative art. It's not combat per se. I don't know if he can fight or not. I mean, like this. In fact, I think there was a video I was watching. They talked about like who are legit guys who've been in the martial arts movies who could fight. Bruce is obviously up there. Benny Urquidez, because he was in the ring for all that time. Certainly he could fight. I've heard about Jackie Chan that he's a legit guy. Donnie Young, he can fight from what I understand. But there's few guys who got like the combat experience, so to speak, to say that these are like legit guys. These aren't just stunt performers. Because think about all those movies that came out in the 70s, all those guys from Chinese opera companies, and that was So again, none of these guys necessarily got formally trained in fighting. But it was all performance for the stage, and then to the movie screen, and beyond. But again, that imagery though, I think that is part of it's certainly part of the attraction, but also I think it's also part of the the problem. Why, again, I think a lot of karate guys think that, or martial arts guys think, okay, yeah, I can do these things like the guys in the movies, but again, fighting is not always.
For example, Clark Van Damme. I can't pronounce his name.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, I have not seen any information out there. He's a legit fighter. He had beautiful kicks. I can't come with that. That's it. He was a Hollywood martial artist, not a real martial artist. Again, I may be talking a little bit on my ass. I have not seen any information personally saying he actually fought in real life.
A couple of people I can think of that are not Hollywood fighters, but you've seen them in movies. Don the Dragon Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock, Michael Jai White, Bill Superfoot Wallace. A lot of them were legitimate combatants. Cynthia Rothrock was like one of the first women fighters, and people didn't take her serious because she was a woman. But she was always able to hold her own and prove that she was definitely a fighter. Tom the Dragon Wilson was involved in martial arts for a significant amount of time as well. Bill Superfoot Wallace was known for his kicks.
Yeah, 60 miles an hour. Yeah. Clock time. Yeah.
Like, for example, I want to give an example of what I was saying before. I know with Jean-Claude Van Damme, he had challenged people to fight, but he never actually fought that I know of.
From what I understand, I think John Carlos is bringing up the point. I think he was an actual kickboxer, or at least he's had some combat experience. But
okay,
you can sort of look that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
and saying he trained with Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris was definitely known in martial arts as well.
Yeah.
And I think he started. And if I remember, I think he started in martial arts from his time in the Air Force.
Correct. Yep. And then he created his own version. I think it was his own Tan Si Do, I think it was his art, but it was kind of like a spinoff of Taekwondo, but he kind of created his own form. Who also I think here's pretty good, Billy Blanks. Now again, everybody got caught up in the Taibo thing, right? Everybody thought that they were going to be a martial artist because they did the Taibo videos, and he even did that. Like in the commercials, he would take a board and break the board, and he would do all these things in there. But again, he sold an image. It's like, look, if you do these things, you can be a karate champion like me, kind of thing. I mean, it had its fad. I got the Taibo videos. All right, I did those. My wife and I early on in our marriage, we would be in the living room. We'd be doing those Taibo videos and stuff. But from what I understand, 7-time world champion, he was legit. Jim Kelly from Enter the Dragon, and Black Belt Jones, he was a legit guy also. So again, you've certainly had guys who've done it in competitive areas. Although again, if you want to go back to 70s karate tournaments, I don't know. Again, were these full contact? Because to me, that's the only thing that really, if you're not there, I don't know, but I don't want to judge. As I said, I certainly haven't gone through that, so I can't say is it yeah, you're a world champion in point fighting. Does that mean you can't fight? I don't know. I mean
Here's one thing I would say with Taibo, with the commercials and everything. It's marketing. It doesn't. If it doesn't catch somebody's eye, most likely he's not going to buy it. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, that is part of the business.
Right.
As much as we might sit here and hate it or love it or it doesn't matter, is part of the business. You have to, like selling a car. If the car doesn't catch your eye, or a phone or whatever, it has to hit the eye. Unfortunately, part of the business.
Yeah.
Same thing with movies. It has to catch your eye.
Right.
I don't have to agree with it, but it is what it is.
How would you guys talk about conditioning? Now, again, conditioning is different in martial arts than it is in boxing or wrestling, for that matter, right? Because it's all about getting you ready for combat. When you say conditioning in martial arts, a lot of that stuff means hardening your hands, punching cement or wood blocks or whatever, hardening your body up to either give punches or take punches or whatever. That's a different thing. But in terms of just condition, could you go an hour, or like in the case of boxing, like a 12-round fight, it's like 36 rounds, or even on an amateur level, 9 minutes in an amateur boxing match? How many martial artists can get in the ring for 3-minute rounds and spar with a boxer who's been training for, your training and sparring is for several rounds, hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds of rounds of sparring that you're doing, conditioning yourself up for the fight. Do martial artists, do they put that kind of work in to get that kind of conditioning in, that kind of physical work in, to be able to fight for long periods of time, or be at least ready to? You can end the fight early, which is always ideal, but could you are you being conditioned to be that guy? Boxers are running 5 miles a day, skipping jump rope for 30 minutes, lifting weights, all kinds of things that they're doing to get into physical shape. And you actually see this in a lot of the physiques of the boxers versus the martial artists. Now, again, MMA, different story, because, again, they're putting a lot of that same kind of conditioning in boxing, has now entered into MMA. But there was a time when you had a lot of martial artists didn't even believe in weightlifting. Bruce Lee, he was one of the first guys who started to introduce weightlifting and weight training into it, and that other martial arts decided to pick up on later. So what do you guys think about that? The conditioning that when it comes between a boxer or a wrestler versus a traditional martial artist? And yeah, so what do you guys think about that?
I think conditioning is very important, because if you, for God forbid, you're in a street fight and you cannot take a punch, that's a problem. So if your instructor punching you right and left multiple times, it roughens your skin, and you were able to take a punch, you know how to react afterwards. Now, with the late weightlifting, I think it's very important, but at a certain age. I do believe is you could be too young to start lifting too.
Yeah.
I think what is a
14, about 14
around there. Okay, I was right.
Yeah, y'all let the bones fuse and finished.
Exactly. So before under 14, body weight's fine.
Calisthenics,
calisthenics. So yeah, we always warmed up calisthenics, stuff like that. And we never weightlifted in the dojo, but he also expected us to go weightlift. Me personally, I didn't join the gym. I joined the football team. I weightlift there instead.
Yeah,
I was kind of cheap actually too. But anyway, that wasn't my point. The point was it really depends on the instructor too. I know instructors who won't do conditioning. My instructor used to grab my shoulders and jump up and down, hitting my calves. And Paul, next time I do it, let me jump on your calves for like 2 seconds. That's 2 seconds. And he's telling me how you feel.
I don't even like him getting one of my massage therapists when she's like massaging. I don't even like that. Yeah, that's painful.
Exactly. So when he brought the boulder out, you just beating your hands over and over and over. And I still my hands are still like that. It's something like probably will never go away. I still have aching pains from the martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
If again, he goes back to your original question: is martial arts real legit? If it wasn't legit, why a lot of real martial artists, this keyword real ones, are aching paining and like at 40 and 50 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because they actually fought in real life. Same thing with real boxers. At 40 and 50 years old, they are actually aching and paining at this age. They can't continue fighting at 40 or 50. Mike Tyson is a great example. He thinks he can fight, but he can't fight anymore. He's done.
Yeah, but unfortunately, him and Mayweather, they're getting situated for
I heard about that.
I want to see that fight, to be honest with you.
I'm not saying I don't buy into this stuff. All these old guys getting in the ring at this point, I'm like, it's just not. I can't see it. Like you don't want to see your heroes in these sort of. I mean, Floyd Mayweather, I think he's supposed to fight Pacquiao legit. This isn't supposed to be a sparring exhibition. But like, I'm trying to get my $150 back from the first fight that they had, which was awful. I had a huge fight party. I had pizza. I had 4 rooms with 4 TVs. Had 20, 25 people in my house, and we were all in this fight. And we were so disappointed at the end. I was like, I want my money.
It was a disappointment.
Oh my gosh,
that fight was a disappointment. I had a bet with a friend of mine who was a content creator on YouTube, guy I went to high school with, and the following day he called me up and said, "Yo, the bet's off. You don't pay me the money." I'm like, "Why?" He still has a family. His uncle, one of his uncles, works for the IBF, and they're based out of here in New Jersey. His uncle told him Manny Pacquiao had a separate told him about Pacquiao's shoulder before word got out.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was Pacquiao was supposed to take a cortisone shot, and he waited too long. And by the time he wanted to take the shot, it was too late. So that's why, if you notice, he only fought basically with one arm.
Exactly. Yeah, just wasn't good. But again, even then, the fight should have happened 5 years before it happened. When those guys were at the apex, I mean, at that point, Floyd started picking opponents that he could, always wanted to get guys who were just above their, their prime, and just past their prime. And so at that point, I stopped buying Floyd fights, especially that when I said I will never buy another Floyd Mayweather fight again.
Plus, also Mayweather is a technical fighter. He counts his shots.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those fighters that counts his shots. If you notice, he never wastes any shots, and his punch count is always over 60, 70.
Yeah,
because he knows how many punches he needs to throw per round. And he's never going to throw not one less or one more. Gotcha. He already has an idea what he's going to do.
Gotcha. Got a question here in the chat. Here's a question discussion. Do you have to be a competitor to be a good fighter? Bruce Lee didn't believe in competition because it had rules.
Ooh.
I think in part, well, like I said, I think that having a fighting spirit, like I said, if you don't, I think if you don't have a dog in you, I don't know if you can be a good fighter. You know what I mean? So whether you get that through competition or what have you, if that's just something in you, like that aggression, and that doesn't mean you have to be always aggressive. Like you can kind of switch it on and off. But I think you have to have that if you have any chance of being a good fighter. Now, does that mean compete? I mean, again, guys in the streets, you learn in the streets, or you learn, like I said, in the back alley somewhere, or even, like I said, the old school martial artists, again, you didn't have a school. You train in the back of factories or whatever, because, again, you didn't want to be seen. And so a lot of that stuff that went down was underground. Like the real OGs was underground. So, yeah. But I think you have to fight to be a good fighter, though. So if you want to talk about no rules, if you want to just talk about, blood sport or, whatever I think you certainly have to fight, but if you're talking about within a sanctioning type of situation, no, I don't think necessarily you need to be a part of it to be a good fighter, but you need to be fighting, and you need to be reacting and working on certain things. But I think certain people, if you're naturally a natural athlete, you have reflexes, things that are innate within you, and you got that dog that's not afraid to hit or give hits. In other words, you're not going to be pulling back on your punches. Then yeah, I think those are the elements of a good fighter, But you can't go in there scared or worried about the consequences. Yeah, I think you have to have that in you, and most people, especially if you got something to lose, a lot of people don't have that.
Subscriber.
Awesome.
Definitely. I think that was one of the things that led to the start of the UFC, because people don't realize back then it was illegal in a lot of states. They didn't want to sanction it in the fights, and they really didn't have any rules. Like the early years of the UFC, it was like John McCain at one point called it cockfighting. That's how off the chain UFC was in the early years. And I remember going to a UFC fight when I was in Georgia back in '96, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, even more so than that, it wasn't even that entertaining. But the thing about it wasn't entertaining, because it would always end up on the ground, guy pinned up against the cage, and either putting his body weight or whacking on or whatever. Like, it wasn't. It didn't feel like sport in that there was like very little skill, at least perceived skill, that you could see that was attractive. I'm not saying those guys weren't skilled early on, but it was boring early
on. All over the place at first, and that was
the
issue.
It was completely unorganized. I learned something. I remember sometime back.
You go first. Go ahead.
Okay, I remember sometime back I got a chance to meet Larry Hazard. He's the head of the state athletic commission here in Jersey, and he was a boxer. He was a referee, but I didn't know he had a history of martial arts either. And he explained how he basically helped MMA go mainstream, but still maintain its dog eat dog, mentality. He spoke to his colleagues. I remember him talking to his one of his colleagues in Nevada who ran the athletics commission there, and the UFC, and a couple other promotions. And he came up with the idea of the fighters wearing gloves, weight classes, wearing mouth guards, so on and so forth. And he came up with these stipulations. He says, this is what you guys have to follow. These are things that are going to have to go on. If you want us to sanction it, here are the things. And when they looked over it, basically Nevada agreed to it. Jersey was okay. And the promotions was like, all right, no problem. We'll sign off onto this. And basically that's what helped get the ball rolling for the UFC. Because they had a good amount of fights here in Jersey. They have fights in Nevada, of course, in Vegas. And then over time, it started becoming more and more legit. A lot of states were sanctioning fights and everything else. Places like New York were one of the last states to sanction UFC fighting. I remember UFC doing a lot of promotions in New York at Times Square for a lot of their fights, and they were fighting in here in Jersey at the Prudential Center. And I remember telling somebody, if the state of New York ever sanctions MMA and you put on a UFC fight at Madison Square Garden, boxing's not going to catch up. And that's what happened. And I remember when the UFC had their first fight at Madison Square Garden, and it sold out that quick. Boxing's never been the same, and they've always been playing catch up to the UFC and other MMA promotions since. And when he told me that it got to the point you had to make it look legitimate in order for the states to sanction it, because before they were just doing whatever. You had guys that was maybe like 135 pounds going against guys 245, 250, maybe more. And a lot of guys practicing several disciplines, and it was just like whatever. I mean, back in the day, in the early years of the UFC, you had guys like Bas Rutten. You had guys like Ken Shamrock. You had guys like Tank Abbott. You had guys like Randy Couture. You had guys like Chuck Liddell. Those guys were basically those guys helped lay the foundation.
Members. Yeah.
Say again?
Like the founding members almost.
Yeah, they laid the foundation for the UFC, basically. Like, they laid the foundation to where it could become could be seen as legitimate. And then, of course, guys like Conor McGregor, George St. Pierre, Uriah Faber, so on and so forth, Quentin Rampage Jackson. Then those guys also helped it as well once states started sanctioning it. Because it was just a combination of not just guys who did boxing, it was guys that had wrestling backgrounds, guys who knew Muay Thai, guys who knew Taekwondo, guys who knew Jiu-Jitsu, guys who knew any various disciplines of martial arts. George St. Pierre was the quintessential fighter. He learned every discipline. He learned a lot of disciplines and found a way to put it all together. And he always took an approach of, I'm going to take this approach like a white belt and go from there. He learned jiu-jitsu, he learned Muay Thai, he learned Goju-Ryu, he learned Taekwondo, he learned Aikido, he learned to wrestle. He learned so many different things and put them all together. And that's what made him one of the most feared and most respected fighters in the UFC. And then, of course, you got guys like Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida, who had that background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Royce Gracie as well. So a lot of those guys helped basically helped lay the foundation to make this a legitimate sport. And when you always hear that, who's better, whether it's a boxer or someone that does martial arts, these UFC guys, a lot of these MMA guys learn to take both sports and put them together as one.
Right.
And
which is the reason that's why I said I didn't want MMA to necessarily be part of the discussion, because to me that just kind of proved my point. Is the idea is that boxing, or wrestling for that matter, should be integrated in. So the whole idea was like the karate, for example, if you're just a karate person versus the boxer or what have you. But I think that where the fastest growth in martial arts, period, is through MMA, and is bringing all these things together and making more complete people who are being trained to fight. Whereas, and you never see, when has ESPN ever showed or showcased a karate tournament?
They used to.
Or taekwondo.
They used to back in the day.
They did everything. They did pool, everything. But I'm just saying, even today, I'm saying, you were talking about, Anton, how boxing got squeezed out because of MMA, but also martial arts, I think for the most part, got squeezed out. You don't see judo tournaments on ESPN or taekwondo tournaments on ESPN, or not even Thai boxing on ESPN. So it just seems like the fusion of all these arts is what kind of, you can't just think in terms of just, this traditional tree that's there is going to have branches. And the latest branch is what we have now. But the purpose of the discussion tonight was, again, we were talking about boxing versus, really it wasn't so much boxing, it was about fighting versus martial arts. That you have a lot of martial arts, the way it's at least how it's constructed today, not how it was back in the day when they were training soldiers and stuff. A lot of martial artists really can't fight, or that the emphasis of the martial art is not on fighting. But if you take a sport like boxing, which is a combat sport where you learn how to fight from day one, or you take wrestling, Greco-Roman or freestyle wrestling, you learn how to fight from day one. That's very different than where a lot of martial arts, traditional martial arts are going. There's aspects to martial arts that have nothing to do with fighting. Like I said, you can pass tests and get certified in a belt or be promoted and never spar anybody or beat anybody, let alone sparring. You go to martial arts tournaments, at least they used to, you would get trophies for forms, trophies in weapons, or some other thing, or trophies in board breaking or whatever. but that's not fighting. And so my thing with the boxing, I think it's one of that in wrestling, and martial artists have also signed on this, that when it comes to fighting, that those things are most useful. And again, and what we're seeing in MMA is the adoption of that, just like Bruce Lee did 60 years ago. He started incorporating boxing and fencing and grappling into his Wing Chun, which was the root foundation of his martial arts. And he created something, or at least at the biggest contribution is, because everyone now is arguing over, well, who's really teaching Jeet Kune Do today? Because everybody kind of took it and went their own different ways with it. But he got people thinking outside the box to say that that you have to there's only one way to train. There's a Japanese way of fighting and a Chinese way of fighting or whatever. And Bruce Lee was like, look, you're an individual. Everyone's going to have a different way of fighting, but there's certain things that don't change. A punch is a punch. A kick is a kick. To get somebody on the ground, you get them on the ground. Those things don't change. And so for the martial arts who were kind of like, oh, well, we do things a certain way, Bruce Lee was like, no way, as way. And I think that's really what's, over the years, what's really changed a lot of people's views. And certainly for those who have taken these traditional martial arts, but they're saying that, no, in my school, they've done things differently. No, we did learn how to fight. We did spar. We did, incorporate certain things. I'm saying all the better. I'm happy about that. But you have a lot of the McDojos, the franchises and whatnot, who are only interested in marketing, selling belts, selling gis, and whatnot, and just having playtime activity for the kids, but they're not teaching them how to fight. But again, if you're a 6-year-old who goes to a boxing gym, you're going to learn how to fight at 6 years old. If you go to a wrestling event, I think starts at 6 or 8, I think, for wrestling.
Around 7 or 8 years old.
7 or 8, you're going to learn how to wrestle right away. I mean, it's not, there's no, you can't fake that. You know what I'm saying? So again, but martial arts, again, for a lot of people, the purpose of it is not even fighting to begin with. It's about, again, we didn't even touched on that, finding the spiritual aspects of it, finding inner peace or tranquility, whatever it is. It's almost like you're learning all these things as a way, I guess, to discipline yourself, but have a confidence or a way about you where you don't have to fight. But again, can you call on that in an urgent situation if you haven't been fighting? The boxer generally is going to be fighting a lot.
I think,
whereas the martial artist, you may try to avoid it, but again, stuff can pop off at any time.
I think it is because in martial arts, you're not taught these different forms and these different disciplines to be a bully. You're taught them how to protect yourself and to protect others. And you don't just think it, you do it. You react to it and everything else. That's why martial arts have always been seen as. It's seen as a form to defend yourself and to defend others, not to be the aggressor. It's never been taught to be the aggressor, to be the bully, like what we remember seeing in the movie The Karate Kid. When Danny left Jersey to move to L.A., and he's dealing with the kids from Cobra Kai. They were using karate to show that they were bullies, that they were aggressive. Miyagi showed Daniel that martial arts can be used to defend yourself on how to be practical and how to be humble and how to be disciplined. And those are the things that Daniel learned when he first did it. At first, he's looking at what Mr. Miyagi's having him doing, and he didn't see anything out of it. Later on, he's realizing, oh, wow, so this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing that. He found a way to put it all together, and it taught him to be disciplined. It taught him how to be humble. It taught him how, not to be arrogant or cocky, how to treat humility. I think John Carlos put that in the chat. That's basically what I've always enjoyed about the martial arts. And usually, like, one other answer, when someone asks a question, how can you tell a place is legit? When it comes to Taekwondo, the one thing you have to look for, and Peter probably knows what I'm talking about when I say this, when you go to a dojo that teaches taekwondo, one thing you want to look for the person that runs the school is something from the Kuki Kwan. And if you don't see that, then they're not legitimate. And Peter knows what I'm talking about.
How about you?
Okay, I don't know what you're talking
audience?
about. So what's a
Yeah,
cookie?
how about you explain for the audience?
Okay, the Kuki Kwan is the Grand Council that legitimizes and certifies black belts. You go to my parents' house. Remember when I told you my sister's a second-degree black belt taekwondo? She has a certificate from the Kuki Kwan stating that she has met all the requirements to be a black belt. And it's written in two languages. One language of the home country you live in, and in Korean. And when you see something like that, that shows how legitimate a person is when they say that they're a black belt.
It is.
That's the one thing. Say again.
So in other martial arts styles, legit. So like Okinawa Shono has their own. I don't remember what it's called. Their own similar thing. So every style has their own. Like Kung Fu has one from their country and everything. It's
Right.
rare. I mean, rare. You get recognized from the States, from another country. You're actually a real black belt. If you have that, that's a glory to hell. That is a Mount Olympus right there for you. Simple. And the thing people will forget, I want to mention this really fast before we get into our final thoughts, is when UFC, before it was UFC, it was the World Martial Arts Tournament. When World Martial Arts Tournament went bankrupt, Dane White and with his partners came in and picked it up for almost dirt cheap, and they were great promoters. They did great to the business, but they also hurt the business a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I also want to mention, because I know we're talking about fighters, and I know I'm going to get heat for this one, like a lot of UFC fighters, I don't think they can fight, to be honest with you, Paul. Like Conor McGregor, I think he's the ugliest fighter in the world. He's on the ground. That's why I see him like rubbing his back all over the place. Yeah, he has 22-6 and 0 ties, but I think a lot of UFC fights are rigged too, to be honest with you. That's my opinion. That's a different conversation for a different show, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into final thoughts. Paul, you want to go first? Anton last.
Yeah. So this is a great discussion tonight. And again, the purpose of this was not to certainly insult those. If you've dedicated yourself to a way of life, to a discipline, a physical discipline, a mental and spiritual discipline, more power to you. I don't care what it is. It's probably made you a better person. And so I got no flack or hate for that. The only thing is, again, when it comes, just know what you're taking on. And again, when it comes to fighting, as certainly John Carlos said, with boxing, you can't play with it. I mean, we can romanticize martial arts and the movements and whatnot and make it very sensational. But with boxing, you can't BS it. It's got to be in its pure form. So you're learning combat from a very early time, and if you decide to stay with it, there has to be something inside you that keeps you coming back, because nobody likes just getting their head bashed in every night, taking hundreds of punches a night. You got to have something in you to do that. So I will always give a lot of respect to boxers, and even to this day, boxing is still my favorite of the combat sports. I know you got MMA and all these other things that are going on, but give me a good boxing match. I'll still get the pay-per-view for that. I'm a boxing fan going all the way back, and the one thing I'm always asking about MMA, especially for MMA fans, name a memorable MMA fight that's on the level of a Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marvin Hagler, or a Tommy Hearns versus Marvin Hagler, or Ali versus Frazier, or something like that. That is a memorable fight to this day. Boxing has so many episodes and so many chapters in its history of great fights that we still talk about in the barbershop and we still reminisce about to this day. MMA, just with the marketing strategy and whatnot, it's meant to have, stars for like a short period of time, and then they kind of move on. I don't know what the legacy is. Those guys that Anton mentioned earlier, the Baz Rutens and the um, uh, Ken Shamrocks and whatnot. Who are those guys today? Where are those guys today? Who's carrying on that tradition that's in the sport? The one guy that you did have, I think, Mega Madoff. I think he quit after he beat what was it, Conor McGregor, or whatever. He basically bounced from the sport. But who are those guys? I mean, they tried Brock Lesnar. That didn't really work, because again, he was a wrestler, but he really wasn't, as well rounded as he should have been. And the guy got gas in 2 minutes of every fight. So MMA, like I said, I'm still not a huge fan of it. I do have friends of mine that are and whatnot. But again, the biggest contribution MMA did is it just validates that, again, these essential combat techniques. Boxing, you need to know how to box. And to this day, boxers are still the greatest strikers. Because I've seen MMA strikers, how they punch, how martial artists punch. The purest punchers, period, to me, are still boxers. And so you have, you have those guys. Again, wrestling. Again, if you can get a guy on the ground, that's half the game right there, especially in MMA. And so you have to go there. And then kicking, as was said earlier, the higher you go up above the waist, kicks become less effective. So again, it's great for the Instagram and it's great for the highlight films and to promote your sport. Most kicks are going to be around or just below the knee. And there's a reason for that, because again, if you can take away one of the main weapons, he can't plant, you can't punch, you can't do anything on a bad leg. And so, MMA just proves once again that even when it comes to kicking, there's really a limited amount of kicks that really work or could do damage to somebody on a consistent basis. And so for me, it's all about the basics of combat that don't change. Hopefully the martial art that you do choose, incorporate some of that into it so that you can be a better a more well-rounded fighter. And if you can bring the art into it to express yourself, as Bruce Lee said, to express yourself through your martial art, then all the better. But it all goes together. And like I said, I think MMA has certainly proved that over the last 25 years. And great discussion. And again, once again, no disrespect to martial artists all over the world. Nothing but some respect for you guys. So that's all I got.
All right, I know I came in a little bit late. I was tied up taking a couple of things, but I'm glad I got onto this. This was definitely a great discussion. I basically grew up in Taekwondo because I started taking it when I was 6 years old, and I did learn a lot when it came to the importance of endurance and stamina, as well as humility and discipline and staying focused on the task at hand. There are still some things that I've learned to this day from Taekwondo that I apply to my everyday life. And that's one of the great things I've always said about Taekwondo as well as learning martial arts. My sister has done a lot and accomplished a lot of things as well. Has gone a little bit farther than my brother and I have. But the one thing I can definitely say is it has helped her in a lot of ways that no one thought was possible. For a black woman being 5'2" to be in Taekwondo, and in the early years that she had to fight guys, just shows how determined she was to prove that she was a very good fighter. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about the discipline and all the other arts as well, whether it's Hapkido, whether it's Jeet Kune Do, whether it is karate, whether it is jujitsu, whether it's Krav Maga, Savate, Muay Thai. There's a sense of humbling, a sense of focus, a sense of finding that inner peace, that center in the arts. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about the martial arts. And I've never had anything wrong with boxing. I'm a big boxing fan myself. I feel like what the UFC has done, it's taught us and shown us how you can combine martial arts and boxing and use it as one. And a perfect example of a fighter that did that is George St. Pierre. And I tell people, if you want to see some great fights in MMA, look for George St. Pierre, look for Uriah Faber, look for Chuck Liddell, look for Randy Couture, look for Bas Rutten, look for Khabib Nurmagomedov. Those guys, Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, those guys have taken something that is beautiful and show how you can put it all together. And it's not about, like I said before, being a bully or being the aggressor. Martial arts to me is to how to get yourself out of a situation, how to defend yourself, how to protect yourself and others. It's not about being the aggressor. It's not about being the bully. And a lot of young people, I tell them, if you want to have an understanding of what martial arts is always supposed to be about, watch the movie The Karate Kid. When you see what what Mr. Miyagi taught Daniel, and how Daniel used what he learned and applied it when he got older, that's what martial arts is about. It's about finding that center, that chi, that balance. It's also a way to keep yourself in shape. It is a way also to make sure that you have endurance and stamina and you have discipline as well. It teaches you how to use your body and how to take care of your body in ways to where I've seen people in their 60s and 70s still taking part in martial arts. They're still sparring occasionally. They're still in very good shape. They may do kata, they may still do tai chi and everything else, but they've always still to stay involved and teach. And the best thing I can tell people, if you are looking for a dojo or any other discipline of martial arts, Peter's right. Talk to someone that's done martial arts. Talk to someone that's still involved in martial arts, and they can help guide you to find not I won't say the perfect school, but the right school for your son or daughter to learn a lot of the fundamentals that comes with it, not just of discipline and balance, but also how to stay healthy and self confidence. I mean, I think I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't learn Taekwondo because I learned a lot of great things from it and I learned to apply it to my everyday life. And that's all I got to say. And those are some words we're thinking about. Thank you.
Hey, before you go,
Uh,
Pete, before you
yeah.
go, it's one Anton. So you have a taekwondo background, you have a
Right,
fencing background.
right.
Again, those are things that Bruce, certainly studied. What do you think? Are you on a martial arts journey now, or are you looking to get back into something? Because it seems
Uh,
like with what you've gained from it, I could certainly see that a continuation for you. Because again, those are you know those are some key tools that you have. So what do you think the future for you is going to be?
I'm thinking about going back into Taekwondo. I've been away from it for quite some time. Between going to
Sure.
college, going into the service, working. Now my situation, I would like to definitely go back into martial arts because I there was something about it that I appreciated, and maybe try to get back into fencing as well. Because the last time I was involved in anything associated with fencing, I was helping a friend of mine coach our alma mater before the school closed, and that was about a little over 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And just being in that environment and having the opportunity to teach kids the significance and the importance of it, I saw great joy out of it. I really did. And I'm looking to get back now, like I said, now I have the time. I would like to get back into Taekwondo. I would like to get back into fencing because there was just something about it where there was discipline, there was confidence, there was motivation, there was encouragement, and the best thing I can say, there was a form of mentoring out of it as well. And sometimes I think a lot of young people now, especially in their teenage, in their early 20s, they need that in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be rigid. It doesn't have to be like rigid or it must be done this way. There's a way that you can teach young people and they don't even realize that you're teaching them. So
Gotcha.
if I have a chance to do that, then hey, I'm looking forward to it.
Gotcha. All right, go ahead, B.
All right, so really fast. I know you mentioned about the ESPN. I just looked it up as you guys are going on. It is a K1 martial art. Under is the same company that runs K1 kickboxing. They
Mhm.
do on K1 martial art fighting on ESPN. By the way, so you know, Paul.
Right. Now I was talking about traditional martial arts like karate, like
Yeah,
like
they
a
don't do
straight up
that
karate,
anymore.
taekwondo,
Yeah,
like those
that
kind
kind
of
of died out
contests.
over the
You don't
years.
see those on ESPN.
Yeah, I don't see that anymore. They died out of it.
Yeah.
So I think this is a discussion we have to do maybe a part 2 because we have a lot more to go over. So I don't want to give you guys my straight answer if I still think martial arts is better than boxing, or like Paul says boxing better. I'm still not convinced 100%, to be honest. So by that said, I think we're gonna do another episode in a couple weeks. I think like give it a little time to marinate and see how we feel.
Oh, I'm game.
Yeah, it's something that I personally still enjoy. If I had the time, guys, I'll be honest with you, I would be training still. I just don't have the time, unfortunately. So, and that's a lot of time you have to put in. So, except that. Quick schedule update. Let's get the heck out of here. So, let me get my schedule up here. So, it won't be any show tomorrow that I remember. Yeah, I'm correct on that. And
Thursday we may do a replay.
yeah, Watt is working on that. Actually, he's doing the
Gotcha.
editing on it for you
Cool.
guys. So the next show will be live. Is going to be the Spartan Arena. Excuse me, Wrestling Talk with the Spartan, episode 5. I haven't really picked topics yet on that. Me and Watt will be speaking about it very soon. And
Okay.
we're going to be talking about karate movies on Saturday in the Hangout, and we will have a gray area on Sunday. So, except that, Paul, last words, really fast.
No, we got and gray area on Sunday. I think we'll complete the trilogy. We talked about Valentine's Day. We talked about wedding rings and engagement rings. So we'll actually talk about weddings. All right. So again, it's a racket. So we'll talk about that on and then we'll complete the romance series, and then we'll get back to some of the more traditional topics that we talk about.
Oh, I gotta come on for that one. I definitely gotta come on for that one for the gray area because I have one of my former coworkers is getting married, I think this summer. And I remember giving him some advice on the importance of what to look for in the venue and everything else. And it makes me think about what my wife and I had to go through when we were looking for our venue for a wedding. And I remember a couple of weddings that my wife and I were invited to, as well as some friends. And some people don't realize like how much people will be dropping for wedding receptions.
Oh yeah,
And
we'll talk
ironically,
about
here in the Northeast, it's common for people to get cash as a gift. So to
All right,
me,
hey, let's not have any spoilers on this. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah,
on
we'll
Sunday.
chop it up.
Gotcha.
We'll definitely,
Yeah. So, except that, guys, this was the Spartan Arena. I am the Spartan. He is the president. Anton, as always, you and your gloves, bro. You and your gloves. Stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.